Hey everybody, we're here.
Just a second, I'll be there too.
I have arrived. Hey Aaron, how you doing? Hopefully you're safe and not in any of the storm zones we have in our country here. Ian says hi there. Grace Owl says hello, how are you doing? Doing pretty well. I have more medical tests coming up, but that's not till next week after our next live show, so I will know more at that point. Ian says, welcome to the channel. Haley says, good evening. Good evening, Haley. Aaron says, nope, not here. Good. It's always good to know people are safe. One of my sisters actually was next to one of the towns that was completely destroyed in North Carolina, but she is safe. Although she doesn't know I checked in on her because she don't talk to me. But hey, I checked in anyway just to see how she was, made sure she was still alive, and she is. So this is a good thing for us. And Ian says, please participate at will.
Just don't fire at him.
Yeah, just don't fire at him. He's really getting tired of that. Everybody's always mad at Will and firing at him constantly. We don't understand what he did, but poor Will. Teresa says, hi, nice to see you. So much has changed over the past week. All positive and wonderful. Feeling good about everything. Awesome. I'm glad that you survived your dunk in the river. Jen says, hello, everyone. Hi, Jen. Life is an adventure. No doubt about it. Any of you north enough to have seen the northern lights over the last couple of days? I could certainly feel the geomagnetic storm we were having last night. It was pretty interesting, kind of intense energy. Teresa says the river goddess must have wanted more of me. She was blessing you with her water. Erin says it's been cloudy here. Ah, so no northern lights, can't see them. It is an interesting sensation though when I can feel them. Because being down here, I don't get that sensation very often. From when I lived up north, I was very familiar with it. And one of the years I was there, we had some of the most active sunspot activity. We had like massive northern auroras. It was like incredible. So,
Yeah, I've never seen one, but I hope to eventually someday.
when I was in Saskatchewan, the natives there said not to watch them because it would make you go insane.
Really?
Yep. The
Huh.
other thing they said was not to count the stars because that would also make you go insane. I think you'd get distracted long before you went
I think
insane.
you'd be crazy to try to start and count the stars,
Well,
but
considering how many they can now see with their telescopes, no kidding. There are so many more stars than we can
well,
possibly
even
see.
with your naked eye, I mean, come on, try and count that many.
Yep. Jen says, we're in the path of the next hurricane. Black. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's Milton, is it? I mean, I can't believe that by the time this is over, pretty much all of Florida will have been impacted by a hurricane between the two that have already gone through and now the third one. It's like apparently you guys I'm sorry to say are right in the zone this year. Not the zone you want to be in, that's for sure. Violet says, hello, you two. Hi, Violet. Tina says, hi, everyone. Hi, Tina. Astra says, hey, guys. Hi, Astra. And she has all kinds of little things there. We've got
Oh yeah, very cute.
UFOs and fairies. And is that a wolf, coyote, doggy, cat, something creature?
Oh, it's cute, whatever it
Is
is.
a cute little thingy, whatever it is. We approve. Hey, Bunny sat on my lap, on my chair for a few minutes this morning. So I'm being accepted into the getting petted on the lap club. Ian, of course, got to be first because Ian is his favorite. They definitely have made quite the bond. Um, but yeah. And I went to the store the other day and I bought one of those little plushy like seats, pet bed thingies. And I thought maybe the rabbit would like it. He did not. I put it in a place, where there's just wooden floor because he slides on it behind the lamp. And when he finally noticed it, he went back there and he dragged that thing out into the rest of the living room and said, "No." I said, "Okay." So I put it on the couch for the cat, and the cat was like, "For me?" He was extremely happy. So it's funny. It's like,
Yep, they're funny beasts.
yeah, yeah, Quinn has definitely got a very specific sense of what should and should not be in his space. And he makes sure that it's, you know, correct.
The cat's just baffled over the whole thing. He keeps going over and sniffing the bunny's lettuce and stuff like, what is he crazy eating that?
Yeah, what is wrong with my humans? They're putting down weird things that I don't care for. So Jen says it's still better than 2005. We got hit 8 times that year where I live. Oh my. Thank goodness. A Grateful Owl says, I got to attend the ceremony on Wednesday night. First time getting rattled in the pitch dark with very loud drumming and singing. It tickled, actually. Well, good.
Oh,
I like that. Astra says, the Kundalini has been shaking the crap out of me. Yeah, mine was going last night too. I'm sure the geomagnetic storm helped with that. It was like as soon as I went to bed and started to like tune in, it was just zoop there. And then sometime during the middle of the night, the Kundalini woke me up and did its thing. I did some spontaneous kriyas here and there. It was working with my legs for some reason, but I was able to sleep mostly through it. Beth says, hi all, blessed be. Astor says, probably from the solar storms too. Yep, could be. I feel like a tuning fork. Robert says, hello, all of you. Hello, Robert. Violet says, I just listened to a jaw-dropping interview on Danny Jones' YouTube with Ammon Hillman about Greek pharmaca and is a highly educated dude who pours through the not seen very much history of our Greek ancestors. Do you know him? No, I do not.
sounds cool, huh?
Robert says, Kundalini, I haven't felt anything. Why? Well, you don't want it to happen until it's ready. Trust me. And even when it's ready, it's not always that much fun. It really depends. So it'll happen. Jen says, how do you know if your Kundalini is awakening and how can you wake it up? Okay, so yeah, do the exercises. The sacred tree meditation that I put out there will help to open up the pathways in your spine, your chakras, balance things out so that when the Kundalini rises, you'll be ready for it. It'll help to prepare the body and the spirit body and so forth of all of that. So I recommend doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd also add to that that a regular course of spiritual developments like Barden will awaken the Kundalini naturally without you ever having to deal with it as Kundalini as such. I mean, working with it directly, it's an indirect approach that'll awaken your chakras and things. But yeah, waking it directly, you should always take that approach with caution anyway and make sure you know what you're doing if you're going to work with it directly. I agree with Siofra that the the meditations like the tree meditation and such are a really nice way to start awakening it without causing problems.
Yeah, sort of make sure everything's all balanced and cleared out and so forth, because it's a lot less harsh on your body if you have voluntarily cleared out your own chakras and opened up those pathways. The really super active phase of Kundalini happens when it's trying to get through a blockage and it's pushing on the block and it just keeps pushing and pushing, and then as it punches through, the body does these massive jerks and so forth. So yeah. Although it can be entertaining in itself, especially for the random stranger
Yeah.
who's seeing it
Um,
going down. But
basically everything, if you want to progress in spirituality, you're awakening some aspect of your Kundalini. It's just usually not, that direct and obvious unless you're doing Kundalini yoga. But for example, doing Barden's exercises on the mental plane will tend to awaken the brow chakra. His exercises that he has set up for the astral plane can help to awaken the heart and the navel chakra. Stuff you do in the Akasha will help awaken the throat chakra and things like that. And as you get far enough along, you'll feel those things happening, even though Barden mentions the chakras but doesn't deal with them directly. The spiritual exercises nonetheless awaken them. Sorry,
so
I'm going to be making a video on Barden's stuff and the elements soon. So,
so Robert says Kundalini. I haven't felt anything. Oh, we did that. Jen says, how do you know when your Kundalini is awakening and how can you wake it up? And Violet says, anyway, it was so fascinating about the guy about the Greek stuff. Robert says, I feel so inferior that my Kundalini could not felt that. The only time I feel a little bit of my Kundalini is when I wear a serpentine for 2 days. Well, we've given you some ideas.
yeah, feeling it isn't necessarily. First off, if your Kundalini wasn't working at all, you'd be dead. So, feeling it is something you can attain, but it doesn't mean it's not working. But people who do feel it, it's an interesting experience, and sometimes it can be negative, and a lot of times it can be positive and blissful. So,
One of the
but
things that I've discovered, if you want to help to unblock it, relaxing your root chakra, like relaxing your buttocks muscles and sort of breathing into it and letting go of control helps it to actually start to
yeah.
move and rise, which
But it,
is
it can be
interesting.
awakening, and just because you don't feel it doesn't mean it isn't there and working necessarily. It just means you aren't aware of that or don't have that clairvoyant sense awakened yet or whatever.
So Jen says, thank you both so much. And Beth says, Kundalini, oh, it's packing a wallop, crazy ear ringing, senses on high alert, neck and leg perking. Yep, probably jerking rather than perking.
Yeah.
Robert says, hello, Beth, I missed you. Grateful Owl says, it was a sweat I attended. The elders were a husband and wife. Sweat
Oh, that
lodges
sounds
are pretty
nice.
awesome.
I wanted to attend one my, or at least have a sweat thing happening this year, but I didn't manage to manage it.
No, hopefully we'll get this in the spring when the willow is fresh and we can build our own lodge here. Beth says, hi, Robert and Grateful Owl. Jen says, thank you, Ian. Is that information in Hermetics or Barden's other books?
Um, well, he mentions it in Hermetics, but he just mentions the chakras. So yeah, I'm learning they affect the chakras from actual experience from doing Barden's work. So I'm realizing it, I have always had a certain ability to feel my chakras. So, when I work with certain aspects of Barden's work, like visualization exercise, I can feel that awakening my brow chakra. It's visual and relates to that. And a lot of the sound aspects, the astral aspects. If you look at the information in a book on Kundalini, the heart chakra is related to sound and that and astral. So that's Barton mentions the chakras. I'm putting the information together with what I already know about the Kundalini and making a connection since I can feel those exercises working in those chakras.
So Robert says, Kundalini, where exactly does it start? The bottom of the spine first or the top? Well, there's three places that it can awaken. The root of the spine, the spine, the root chakra, the heart chakra, and the crown chakra. And I personally think it's best when it's the root chakra that awakens first, but because the crown chakra can lead you to like ego kind of, I don't know, fantastical thinking and so forth if you're not ready for it there. Heart chakra is balancing, so if I had to pick another one, that would be a good one because it sort of balances in both directions. But I mean, all
Yeah.
three end up being open.
Well, yeah, basically the Kundalini itself, when it's fully awakened, goes from the root chakra up to the crown, but you've also got a counter current coming back down from the crown to the root. when they're talking about awakening Kundalini, they usually talk about it in the root chakra. Um,
It's the rising
that's
serpent
the
power.
powerful one, that the big transformative one, but it's also dangerous and it can kill you. It's considered a lot safer to start from the top, but basically there are systems that start from both directions. And it's the same way with the Kabbalistic stuff or the Tree of Life stuff, down from the top or up from the bottom. Actually, each way is valid. If you start from the top, it'll take longest to get the physical effects. If you start from the bottom, you start getting the physical effects, but you might not be able to handle them without the equilibrating functions of the upper aspects. So,
Yeah, the tree meditation that we have up there works in both directions. You're pulling energy up the spine from below and pulling energy down the spine from above. So it helps to kind of get that flow both up and down happening simultaneously and mixing the energy in the chakras and whatnot. So
yeah, when you're talking about Kundalini yoga specifically, you're talking about awakening it in the root. But many of them, a lot of the things, Kashmir Shaivism and stuff, might start from the heart chakra a lot of times and then work either direction from the heart chakra, below and above. Yeah.
so Grateful Owl says hi Beth, and Beth says I've missed all of you. Bear with me on this new phone. We're glad that you're back. Robert says, yeah, I've read months ago that we have chakras pretty much everywhere, like points of energy, even the hands and the feet. Well, yeah, the palms and then the same area on the foot, in the center of the foot, those are minor chakras. And you do,
Yeah, and
just
that's,
like you have acupressure points
yeah.
and meridians all over your body, it's another energetic system. And there are parts of it everywhere. And that's one of the reasons why there's a confusion between the navel chakra and the solar plexus, because the solar plexus is a chakra point, but it is a minor chakra compared to the navel chakra just below the belly button, which is more of the center of that energy spot. Not that it doesn't work if you use it, but
Yeah, so
still,
you have lots and lots of minor chakras, and there's supposed to be like 720,000 energy channels that interconnect between the different minor chakras and major chakras and things, but the major ones are what wake it up.
yeah, too much to try and map out in my head. Teresa says, I had some channeling happen when I was meditating on my outside swing. The message was not to be defensive, and it has more to do with how that blocks incoming messages. Well, true. You do have to be properly critical. Critical thinking is important, but defensiveness is not. Robert says, Beth, I wish I could be off grid, no phone, no rent, just solar energy. Jen says, understood. Thank you, Ian. And hi, Robert. Robert says, hi, Jen. How's it going? Beth says, root chakra always cranks up and gets on my nerves at this age. Well, when I can let it just go, it sort of pulses through and rises up through my head and just kind of sort of goes out in waves. Sometimes it gets stuck in one chakra or another and does something there for a while too. Usually fairly ecstatic and energizing. Sometimes it's annoying and keeps me awake. So Beth says, hi Jen. Astra says, yeah, I didn't plan a Kundalini. I was very upset that I couldn't make it stop. I just feel like I have a cyclone of squirrels having a nonstop party. You can eat heavy foods to help slow it down if you need to. And when it was really super active for me, what was recommended was bending my knees. You can bend your knees, and that can like sort of block the energy coming up from below. But warning, it doesn't necessarily, depending on what's happening, make it stop, because then when you unbend your knees, it's all built up and ready to go. That was the time that happened to me when I was trying not to do it in public. And by the time I got to a place where I was safe to let it happen and unfolded myself, it actually lifted me up off the bed. And the only thing touching were the heels of my feet and the top of my head. Everything else was being pulled up by the energy, which was quite startling to my housemates. And very surprising to me because ordinarily I can't do that. That's not something I can achieve. It's not possible for me. So it was certainly interesting. Beth says the top of my head aches as well, drinking lots of water. And Astra clap. Beth says Astra with a hand clap. Astra says, very annoying with you trying to sleep and feeling your innards sloshing around. Yep, I know. Astra says, hi, Beth. Grateful Al says, thanks, Teresa. I was wondering about that recently. And Jen says, hi, Beth. Teresa says, YW? Grateful Owl? Something that means something.
So did you get Robert's there? Robert in lead.
How is Jen doing?
Siofra, as a witch or occult practitioner in your life, did you ever at one point have a period where you wanted to commit suicide?
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, it's right there. It had the word suicide in it, so I had to approve it.
Oh, okay, so it's probably up above and I'm scrolled past it.
Yeah.
So I missed it. Okay, so what was the question again?
As a witch or occult practitioner in your life, did you ever at one point have a period where you wanted to commit suicide?
Well, I've always been a witch, and I did at one point consider it when my daughter was really small. I was in an abusive relationship with my second husband, and I probably had some postpartum depression, I'm thinking at the time. And the thing that stopped me was the fact that I was nursing my daughter. Even though logically she would survive without me, the fact that my body was producing what she needed made me useful and made me want to stay for her. So, I mean, it can happen. And there were times when I wondered when I would be allowed to go back to what I considered home. This is when I was up in the Kispiox Valley. I had that feeling like this was sort of a prison I was being forced into, and I don't know, not punished so much, but it was sort of torment and torture and so forth, and wanted to know how long I was going to be having to stay here before I could go back home. But that didn't quite get into thinking about killing myself. So if anyone is struggling with that, definitely there's I think it's a 988 number now, which is the suicide hotline. I'm not sure in the United States, but according to Barden, if you do commit suicide, your spirit is stuck on the other side until the time of your natural death should have happened, when you how long you had decided you were going to stay. So you don't actually save yourself any time in that sense. Um, and then there's the risk of becoming a, you know,
Well, there's also the aspects that if you had karma to work out yet, you'll still have that karma will pass over to your next life if you were supposed to have finished it out this life and you didn't.
right. And yeah, so,
Spiritually, it's not a good thing to do. Not a
and then you might
shortcut.
become an earthbound spirit and have to have someone like me come and rescue you. Anything is possible. But hey, it's better not to if you can, in general. Um, so let's see. Astra says I try to push down the lower into the lower chakras because I start seeing into dimensions when it gets into the head. It is crazy when you feel it in your brain, a little disheartening to feel your brain. I like the explosion of endorphins that happens in my brain. I can feel it happening, which is actually pretty cool, so I don't mind that part. Josco says, hi everyone. Hi, Josco. And Beth says, hi. Josco says, and Chiefra, thank you for answering. I didn't yet find quality time to write back. You're welcome. Teresa says, always remember that no matter how strong a feeling is, that feeling is transient. It will pass. This is true. Change is the only constant. Everything is always in transit and changing and transforming into something else. Robert says, I personally don't believe in karma. I never felt its energy anywhere. One day it could change. Karma is not something that you need to believe in. Karma is just sort of a natural law of the universe of cause and effect. And most people use the word incorrectly and think of it as like a tally sheet that's being kept and that you've agreed to this, that, and the other thing. And it's not really like that. It's just more of a force, kind of like water going downhill.
Yeah, you set energy in motion. It's going to go till it expends itself, and that's basically your karma.
And it good and bad. It's not about some people think karma is only for the bad stuff, but it's not. It's for everything. It's just a way of expressing um, the results of your life happen because of what you do in your life. And if you do something you need to make amends for, you need to find a way to make amends. If you are kind hearted and open hearted and helpful and kind to other people, even if you don't get like praise and all this other stuff for what you're doing, the universe sees this and knows this, and then will find ways to try and reward you for your good behavior, for your good energy. So you might break down on the side of the road and someone might just sort of come along out of nowhere and know how to fix your engine and do it, like happened to my daughter. She broke down somewhere and in this neighborhood, and this guy came along, and it turns out that he knew that car and he knew exactly what was wrong with it, and he fixed it on right then and there, and that was that. So there's a lot of those kinds of serendipitous coincidence kinds of things that happen when you become aware of it. And that is generally something you've done somewhere down the line that's coming back as a different form of energy through a different person, perhaps, and quite often not through the person you did something positive for. So it just sort of moves along in that direction. And yeah, it's kind of like you don't have to believe in gravity either. But if you fall off a cliff, you will go on the bottom. It's kind of the way
Yeah,
things work, just a natural law. So it's not really a philosophy. And I think that's the problem is
right.
that people think of it as a philosophy or a theory or something like that, and it's not. It's just like the nuts and bolts of how energy works and what happens with it and,
Yeah.
how it interacts. So Asher says, laugh out loud. If the Kundalini causes me to perform acrobatic feats, that might be kind of fun. Well, yeah, it can be. Robert says, acrobatic? Perhaps I have indeed a surcharge myself, changing my diet, and my strength has gone up the roof, and I have this desire to stretch like crazy until my spine gets all out there. Well, that could be certainly
Yeah,
a manifestation of the Kundalini trying to move you through your body
that's
movements.
kind of what it sounds like,
Yep.
actually. Yeah.
Jen says, Siofra, speaking of karma, do you think who suffer an extraordinary amount in life, even if they have a good heart and consciously always try to help others and do good, do you think were they really just bad people in another life, or is there another explanation? It's a good question. I think that there's another explanation, and one, society sucks. Two, people suck, and there's terrible people all over the planet. Three, they haven't gotten clear enough in themselves to be able to avoid the pitfalls of the life that they happen to be in, and they're not paying the right kind of attention to maneuver themselves around the things that are happening. Could mean that they're psychologically unstable in some sense, like being attracted to the wrong kind of individual and constantly putting themselves into bad relationships because they haven't dealt with like their shadow self and that kind of thing. I think that people use the answer that they must have done something wrong in a past life as an out and in some ways
Yeah, I agree.
and
They
an
do.
explanation
Yeah.
for what's going on. But the reality is, this life is the one you're in, and this is the life you have to do the work in because this is where you are. And so, if things aren't working out, the universe might be trying to lead you in a different direction and you're not paying attention. Or you're misunderstanding everything. I don't know. And I'm sure every case is different. But what you believe is the case becomes reality in energetically. So if you think that you're cursed and that you have nothing but bad luck and that nothing good can come to you and nothing good can ever happen to you and that you don't deserve to be happy, these are things you will manifest. And that could look like bad karma.
Yes, it's very true. A lot of times people manifest things according to their innermost thoughts and desires, not the things they are trying to manifest or consciously attempting to manifest. But a lot of times there's subconscious things and things buried way deep and all that that can cause problems. and those things can be rooted out to help what seems like a bad karma or really bad luck situation sometimes. Um, with Hindu stuff, they're called samskaras, and I'm probably not pronouncing that quite right, but it means tendencies that have been built into you. A lot of them, even before you were, really aware as a very small child or a baby, even tendencies can become built in, and then you have to clear them out and get rid of them before they stop interfering with you.
Yeah.
I don't hope that didn't go too far astray.
No, I think that's pretty much what we're talking about here. So Asha says, yeah, stretching sounds like a good idea. I'm trying to get into shape to handle this crazy energy. Josko says, I have a question. I heard of some people talking of the Christian egregore and that if we were once in the system, we have certain obligations and debts if we choose to change our path, and that we must go on a process of debaptization. I do not agree that much with the people saying this. I think it's different for everyone. But what about people who walk, let's say, the warrior path, and it is in their nature to pay the debts that were once put on them? Um, Okay, I'm not sure exactly what the question here is.
Well, first off, I don't think that just because you used to be a Christian, you have any obligations or debts to it. You can choose to leave or join that, in my opinion, without anything bad, unless there are two aspects for the Christian aspect. Is if you have a bunch of people praying against you to fail, which can amount to a psychic energy charge that can be negative and harmful, or something within your own mind that believes that bond needs to exist. But no, in my opinion, there are no debts or anything that you owe. Nothing that, you may have certain things that need to be removed from your system or what have you, but no, no debt you owe or anything like that
I think it's
as
a
far as that
personal
part of
choice. And the thing is that, like
it.
in Starhawk's book, The Spiral Dance, she said that it is not enough to reject a system of belief that you were raised in, but you have to actually go about changing it into something else. You need to replace it with something else, whatever it might be. And I think that that's the case here, is that these people haven't done that particular kind of work where they've gone in and evaluated their belief
Yeah,
systems from how they were raised or who talked to them and what they absorbed and so forth, and then chosen a different way of thinking and then made it happen for them, rooting it out in the subconscious and the unconscious, which is not an easy process. It takes time to do.
yeah, and I would say there's no point in going on a process of debaptization. I mean, you can if you choose, and that could help you to have a good break with the
It
Christianity
could
if you
be like
want.
an
But I don't feel like
unbinding
it's I
ceremony.
don't feel like it's so necessary. When I decided to stop with Christianity, it just fell away for me. I was tired of it. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't desire that as a religion, and I just let it drop. And that's all you need to do, really, if that's your
Well, you're
goal there.
actively doing a lot of other stuff, so. Okay, so Teresa says something that I've observed and have come to understand about how the universe works is that it wants us to help each other to achieve our goals and won't hand things on a platter, like a winning lotto. Yeah, maybe so. Robert says yes, because I am since last year into an hour change of sleep wake mode, and maybe this change is exactly happening now. I don't sleep same time as before. Hester says don't want to pull a hammy, but the Kundalini needs acrobatic feats.
Actually, that's a joke, but
But it's true. You
it's
can't hurt
absolutely
yourself.
true.
Got to be
At
careful.
some points, you can't let the Kundalini. If the Kundalini causes kriyas, which are involuntary bodily movements, they're not entirely involuntary. You have to let them go forward to a certain extent, and if it can go forward to the point of causing you physical harm and injure yourself. So that's actually what happened that gave me a hernia at one point. I was having a Kundalini kriya, and then I went for years before I was able to have it fixed. But I let that go too far. So you have to stop it because before don't let it physically injure your body if it's overstretching and stuff. Because while it is an intelligent energy, yeah, you have to maintain a certain sense of consciousness about what's going on.
Yeah, and you have ultimate control. You can just get up and start walking around and it'll start to fade away. You have to like
But
relax and allow it to
yeah,
happen.
even though it's actually kind of a joke, it's not so much because you really can injure yourself that way.
So Robert says debaptization. I know some ways to get rid of that. Shifra, are you a horror movie watcher? No, I really tend not to care. I like supernatural movies, and some of them are sort of a little a little horror, but I get really tired
Yeah,
of the same old trope with the the demons and the angels fighting it out and stuff like
yeah,
that. I just find it boring.
I agree. I agree completely. I don't care for the horror movies
And
myself
I don't
either.
really care for blood and guts and gore to see visually. I mean, even if it's something I want to watch, I'm usually covering my face when that happens because I don't need to see that. It's like I like the story. I like um, the implications. We did enjoy Supernatural, which did have some horror here and there, but it was
Yeah, well, it was all
mostly
comedy
but it was
mostly. Yeah,
mostly the comedy, the
comedy and
storyline,
campy and yeah,
right,
that's
and
what it was supposed
the
to be. Yeah,
humor, the personalities, the acting, and all that other stuff made up for the small bits we didn't care for, so we kept watching it. But it's but yeah, not really. Unless it's Christmas time and I'm having a difficult year. Because Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Christmas are two holidays that I have historic difficulties around because that's when a lot of well, and Easter too, but not so much anymore. But still, Thanksgiving and Christmas is when the family got together, and that's when a lot of the abuse happened, was during those holidays and everybody pretending everything was okay. So there's this like pressure. And one year it was just really bugging me, and I was like flipping through the channels, and there was like Christmas this, Santa that, angels this, miracle that. It was just driving me crazy. And then I saw a horror show, and I thought, well, at least that's different. And I actually watched the entire thing. And afterwards, I felt better. So it kind of cleansed out the sticky saccharine ick. But I don't need to do that very often. So yay. It's a specific prescription for me. So Beth says, I wonder if we do shadow work for so long, every time you feel you've done the deep work, something else comes up. Well, isn't that the case? There's always more down there, right?
well, that's the problem. You know, the problem is it's like digging a hole. You take off the surface, but you know what? Every bit helps, though. You know, keep taking it off. It gets better and better as it goes.
Yeah,
You
well,
get
and the
clearer and
more often
clearer.
you go through the process, the easier it is for you to
Yeah.
remember that it is a
Though it
process.
can be painful and traumatic going through it too. It's
You
like you
know
have
you'll
to
get
relive a lot of that stuff to get it out of you and get rid of it, but
you'll get to the other
it's worth it.
side.
Yes, it
Yep,
is.
you'll get to the other side. So Robert says, Beth, you're right. My view on this is that we must not do too much shadow work. Not unless you're, you know, needing it, I guess, or ready for it. Asher says, I don't feel like I owe the Christian egregore jack squat, that God can kiss my grits. Well, yeah, I actually had a conversation with Jehovah one day when I was a teenager, and I realized that he needed me actually more than I needed him. So we made an agreement that if he would leave me alone, I would leave him alone, and everybody would be fine. So that's sort of where we're in detente, I guess. Jen says, thanks, that makes sense. I used to think I was cursed because I have suffered literally since I was born, but I also have had beautiful spiritual experiences, so I know spirit is within me. I know if I looked at it that way, considering my life, born into a highly dysfunctional family, being tortured and sexually abused by my father and by my uncle, marrying a serial rapist and having a child with him, marrying a child abuser, um, and a violent person and having a child with him. I mean, if I needed an excuse to feel like the universe was against me, and at times I probably felt that way when I was going through it, I have plenty of reasons I could bring up and say this, this, this. But in the end, I'm the only one who can change myself, and I'm the only one who can do the work. And I decided I wasn't going to accept it, that this was not my fate unless I allowed it to be. So that's where I'm coming from, and I understand. It's it can be difficult to have hope in humanity and the world and so forth when there's so much negative stuff happening all the time. Like I say, I'm an optimist despite all evidence to the contrary. So apparently I'm insane when it comes to that. So Robert says, Astra, you're right. Cursed are into the eye of the beholder most of the time. Siofra, what is ceremonial magic? Well, I'm not the right person to ask that question of. I will let Ian.
Well,
Well, I can answer it,
you
but
can answer it as well as anybody, but basically, ceremonial magic is simply any magic done by a ceremony as compared to magic done by like Barden's methods, where if you're doing magic, you might like breathe a element into a talisman or something, you know, pull it in directly from the universe via your body and load a talisman with it, that kind of thing. So you're working with the magical aspects directly versus ceremonial magic where you would like have maybe use the banishing pentagrams to banish the elements from an object. So that would be using, you know, ceremony and ritual to do it versus um, if, for example, in Barden's first book, you would to if you wanted to cleanse a talisman before you charged it, you would like hold it in a filter paper with some earth around it, maybe bury it that way for overnight and focus on the earth sucking all the energy out of it, all the uncleanliness. Then you might dump it in a cup of water, salted water maybe, and have the water suck all the impurities out, you know, and then you'd wave it over a fire and have the fire move through it. Versus in the pentagram ritual, you have a fire pentagram, an earth pentagram, an air pentagram, and you use those and make those gestures. So, a lot of ways, ceremonial ritual is first making symbols for yourself in the universe and then using them to draw on those energies. Whereas in something that's not ceremonial, you're doing it directly. So basically, anything that has a ritual or repeated gestures or anything like that as part of the magic ritual that you do in a specific way is ceremonial magic. That's how I describe it.
yeah, and generally speaking, when people talk about ceremonial magic, what they're thinking of is like the Golden Dawn, um, the Western Hermetic magicians,
Which is all that way. It all
which
uses
is
symbolism and such.
right. But they're very strict in exactly how you have to do everything, and can and yeah,
Right,
where
that's one difference. Whereas non-ceremonial, you can, you know, if you understand what you're doing, you can do anything in any darn order you want. Though
right,
certain things would be recommended, like cleansing something before charging it, for example.
it
But
would make
yeah,
sense.
but you don't have to do it by drawing a pentagram over it or doing it in any of the typical ways. You can breathe the element into it. You can bury it in it. You can put it out in the sun to absorb it directly and work with all kinds of things directly
You can
too.
think at it,
So that's more like the Wiccan way. It has a lot of that and ceremonial in it also in making a circle and things like that. So it's
and
kind of a
yeah,
combination of both.
right. When we do like a ceremony, I don't consider it ceremonial magic because in my mind the
But it
ceremonial
really is
magic
though.
is right. By your definition, it definitely is. In my brain, ceremonial magic is more of the calling in the angels and the forces and all the other stuff that's steeped in the Western occult practices. And for me, doing a magic ritual, making a circle to contain the energy makes sense because you got to have somewhere, to keep the energy in. It's not there necessarily to keep energy out, but to keep the energy I'm building up in. And then you have to have a certain amount of structure so that you can make the most use of the energy that you're making.
Well,
So I
sure, but
think,
you can make the circle entirely mentally too without having to actually walk it or physically draw it.
well, yeah, there's a lot of different things, but yeah. But anyway, it's like everything else. There's going to be different definitions depending on the person you're asking and their particular experience with it and what they think it means.
But yeah, my definition would be if you do a ceremony,
Then
you
it's
know,
ceremonial magic.
or if you just sit and work with things like a lot of things I
Then it's
do.
just seat of your pants.
Yeah, a lot of things I do, you wouldn't see that I'm doing anything because I'm doing it internally, charging things and things like that.
So Teresa says, take the chain off your brain. Robert says,
Yep,
chain brain. Haha.
yep.
Josco says, thank you for your elaborate answers. You're
You're welcome.
welcome. Beth says, Robert, I've done it most of my life and things buried still come up. That would be
Yeah.
shadow work.
Yeah.
Robert says, Beth, it is exactly my point. Avoid exhaustion. Sometimes bad energies make you believe shadow work is necessary, but it was just a trigger. My dad had an approach that I respected. Sometimes we must say to ourselves, never mind. Well, I think that it's important to take care of yourself while you're going through shadow work because this is not about self torture.
Yeah.
It's about self healing. And so, if you're working with things that are difficult, you need to have emotional support, maybe physical support, nutritional support, um, you know, um, counseling support, if it's that kind of a thing, where you have an outside person who can help you put things into perspective. But you also have to take breaks, take care of yourself, eat well, get good night's rest,
Yeah.
because it's not going to work well.
If you overdo it, you can just plain
Burn
get depressed.
and
Yeah.
burn yourself out.
Yeah, you can get depressed and burn out. You certainly don't want to do that because again, that's not the goal of it. The goal of it is to clear it out so it doesn't bother you anymore, not to
Right. And it's like everything
focus on it.
else,
Yeah.
in moderation.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with those things too, not to like take them to bed with you and don't carry them around your whole day. Make sure you work with them and then drop them and get some rest from them for a bit before you
And,
go back
go
to it.
outside
Yeah.
and enjoy some awe and beauty of nature, or, have a ice cream if
Yeah.
that's what you like. I mean, do something positive and helpful and happy for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, don't let it drag you
Listen to
down for
music
sure.
and,
Because if you let it drag you down, then you're
yeah.
accomplishing the opposite.
You can do shadow work and still enjoy your life. Is what we're trying to say here. Yeah. So Beth says, move around and shake it off helps me. Robert says, depends on situation. It's case by case, I guess. Exercises helps a lot, Beth. I do it myself and it works. Jen says, but I wonder if it was a big asshole in another life to have so much suffering, but maybe it's just lifing. Yeah. And, you know, some of the past lives I remembered, not such a nice person. But again, it's about the life you're in, not the life you've been in. And, there's like, that's why most people don't remember their past lives. Then they find out what morons they used to be.
Well, I
Oh
also
my.
have a theory that a lot of people don't remember like death and dying, and they might, they don't want to, and subconscious aspect helps. I think the death thing helps block it because
Well,
you might remember that if you.
well, I think that it's an opportunity for us to have a clear slate, start off with a, fresh, unfettered
Oh yeah, clearly.
opportunity to evaluate and reconnect with things without the chains being brought along all the time. So, Beth says, I don't exercise like I used to. I did it in my profession. I'm older and my bones hurt. I don't blame you. I don't either. Robert says, Jehovah, Shifra, you confirm he exists. I am surprised. I will go to sleep less stupid tonight because of you. Shifra says, or Robert says, Shifra, who is Jehovah and what is his role here on earth? Is he a bad spirit dude? Um, my opinion, an a-hole of the finest order, definitely. And just because a whole bunch of people are worshiping him and have give him enough juice to sort of, hang out and do his thing, doesn't mean he's the only one out there and not necessarily the one I'm interested in interacting with. He was very much like my father, jealous, angry, equates fear with respect, which is the wrong way of thinking, um, all that kind of stuff. So after evaluating his preferred personality profile and his preferred acolyte personality profile, I decided to opt out of that because that just didn't make sense to me and I'm not willing. But yeah, there's lots of things out there. Pastor says, wise words, Shifra. Thank you. Haha. Violet says, can anyone else besides me hear an interference in that a possible shadow ban is happening, or is it only me? Just curious if others are. A shadow ban? I'm not sure what that means. Robert says, I don't know. Star Trek Voyager. Yeah. Beth says, Ian is the ceremonial magic master. Sierra too. She's being modest. I think it means Shifra. Yes, I am. I do stuff with him, and I can do it quite fine. It's just not my preferred mode of operation. Astra says, I'd say finding out I'm a witch and getting to play with fairies makes the trauma pale in comparison. Witches are cool kids. We are brave and few. I see possibilities and try to let stuff go. Yes, good girl. Astra, yes, I love it, says Beth. Robert says, yay, but Astra, which is which? Astra says, both of them are being modest, Beth. I remember one week you and Ian were talking about throwing pentagrams. I was like, what? We can do that? I learn something new each week. Yes. And actually, I just had a conversation with this about this with somebody, and I like the fact that I know how to do that now. So like when I'm at, I don't know, medical offices or somewhere out in public where I suddenly feel like off or something, I can draw the different invoking elemental pentagrams just in front of me, and then I can place them around me wherever I want them to be, and then have my circle. So I can do it just with gestures and moving like that. And why not? If thoughts are real and thought forms are real, and you can send those to someone to give them the idea that you need to like pick up a phone and talk to them or something like that, why not be able to throw the pentagram that you drew yourself, which is your own personal thought form that you've made, and put it somewhere in the planes? So then there it is, and it'll stay wherever you want it, or within a distance from yourself. But yeah, a lot of times we don't know what we know until someone asks us a question. That's kind of an interesting process for us doing these shows. It's one of the things we like about it. Robert says, Siofra, yep, lots of support. Beth says, Astor, you have no idea what you're capable of, but you will, my darling. Shay says, hello all, ducking in during lunch. Great explanation discussion about ceremonial magic. Thank you both. You're welcome, Shay. Thank you for dropping in. Josco says, Shifra, you have once mentioned about your experience with a unicorn, but I can't find the video in which you mentioned it. Can you repeat it now, or what your opinion about them? The classical medieval interpretation of the unicorn follows me my whole life. Okay, I did.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if I actually covered it in a video or not. I may have or I may not have. It happened when I lived up in the Kispiox Valley, and and I meditated under a grove of trees. There was like 4 different kinds of trees in a circle down by the creek, and I would sit beneath the cedar tree, and that's the tree that got my first wand came from, and meditate there sometimes for hours a day. And one day I was sitting there meditating and just sort of opening up my mind, and I had a sudden clear vision that across the creek from where I was, which was really all virgin wood, that's what was actually there, suddenly there was a grassy hillside and no trees at all. And then a unicorn came up, up on top of that hill and started walking down, or running actually down the hill in my direction. And so that was just a really cool vision. And I met I met a guy, and who knows whether this is accurate, because you hear stories, you don't know for sure, but he said that he went into a cave somewhere in British Columbia, and when he came out of the cave, he was not here in on our Earth anymore, but he was in a parallel world where the unicorns had gone to and had escaped to get away from us because our warring ways were too much. And he was there for 2 years of their time and got to know them very well, and then convinced them to let him come back because they did not want anyone to know where they were. And when he came back, I think he'd only been gone for 2 days, maybe. But he was an interesting man. I only talked to him a few times. He also had an encounter with a Sasquatch up there in British Columbia. So, whether this was a vision that he had, um, an altered state that he was in, whether it was physically true or, whatever, I don't know. But it was kind of interesting anyway. And historically, I think that unicorns don't generally look like horses. They're more likely to look like a goat. More of the ancient unicorns were goat shaped, not actually horse shaped. That kind of came in later, but I don't know. But they do definitely represent purity and the ability to see through a person's soul, as it were, to see their true nature, which is why they're reputed to be attracted to innocence in young girls, I think.
I'll be back in a minute. Violet said she's having some problems with words cutting out, so I'm going to get a headphone so I can check.
Okay. All right. So Ian's going to go get some headphones to listen to see if there's some interference that we have. We tried to get interference free. We've been working on that. So Robert says, Siofra, do you know any? Oh, Josh says they, yeah. Siofra, do you know other beings like Jehovah that are just as powerful or higher up or something? It would be cool conversation. I'm fascinated with deities, or they are gods or something. Well, I've met a number of them, and they're very real. The gods and the goddesses that I've met, they're independent, external individuals, and the ones that I work with are mostly the ones I've met in person when it comes to that. Anubis, the Garuda, uh, Kali, and Artemis, and Aphrodite come to mind as some of the ones that I've encountered directly. And in Bridget, I mean, it's sort of an all-encompassing question. Each one is very, very different, and they all have their own energetic personalities and so forth. So Violet says the words are cutting out, so Ian went in to go get the thing to hear it, see if he can figure out what's going on. Heather says, I have negative energy in my home. How can I get rid of it? Fill your home with positive energy and don't allow the negative energy to stay. First thing I recommend is doing sort of a general banishment of negative energy. And you can do this pretty easily. You can take up your broom and start at your front door and then sweep negative, focusing on sweeping negative energy out of your home, house, apartment, whatever it is, and go all the way around in a counterclockwise direction and in each room that you go in. And pay attention, because if there's a lot of negative energy there, it'll turn you around. You'll start to be going in the wrong direction suddenly. I had that happen to me in a few houses I was cleansing. And then get yourself back to the front door, and then you sweep it all out the door and close the door. Some people like to open up their windows to let it escape. You can use different kinds of like scents, like sage or frankincense or something like that to make the energy leave the house. And then after you're done getting rid of, you can also, if your kids are involved, you can give them pots and pans to bang on. You can ring bells. You can shout. You can yell, chase, go away, leave me alone. But when you're done with that, after you've got, the energy, the bad energy out of your environment, then you need to fill it up with positive things. So your favorite music, your favorite smells, cook something, bake some bread or muffins or cookies, or make some apple cider or boil some cinnamon on the stove, or whatever it is that makes you feel positive. Burn some sweet smelling incense like sweetgrass or some other kind of incense that you like, that is something that draws and fills positive energy in. So that's the thing. If you've got negative energy in there, you can just make it leave and then fill your house with positive energy, and then it can't get back in, which is sort of the point. Yeah, so, and Robert says, Heather, you may use a big chunk of black tourmaline. Yeah, and you can do that too. And obsidian, because tourmaline's more expensive. They don't usually come in large chunks because of that. And Asher says, thanks, Beth. And Beth says, Robert, good answer. Haley says, what are some books you'd recommend? Maybe about fairies, witchcraft, etc. I love your stories and would love to hear more. Well, Starhawk's The Spiral Dance is a good beginner's book. Just know that not all the information about history in there is now considered accurate. It was considered accurate at the time that it was first published, but the magical approaches and things like that that are in there are. She doesn't go into depth. It's sort of a primer, beginners kind of a book. And anything by Doreen Valiente, um, or some of the more traditional older books and so forth about the beginning of witchcraft. I like Doreen. Her approach is very easy to understand. I think Witchcraft Today was one of her books that I have. Just remember that, and with fairies, most of the information about fairies is not accurate. It's mostly fear-based nowadays. But there is a book called The Real World of Fairies by Dora Van Gelder, which is based on her personal experiences, which is a lot more informative when it comes to what fairies are actually like. Um, yeah. And, certainly some of the traditional old ones, like Gardner, etc., are a good foundation to understand the evolution of the craft. But remember that all of this is an experiential path. And all of those books can give you some ideas, notions, inspiration, so forth, but it's the actual doing, it's the being out in nature, it's the encountering the spirits in your neighborhood, it's communing with the trees and the animals and the fairy folk and so forth. It's that putting yourself out there energetically and allowing the experiences to come in that's going to teach you about your magic and the magic in your area, because every part of the planet's going to have slightly different things happening, because variety is the spice of life. Heather says, I keep knocking on the closet door. I cannot sleep. It makes a lot of noise today. You, oh, something is knocking on your door. Okay, well, do what I said and see if that helps. And you can say out loud if there's a annoying spirit in there. There's two approaches. You can say, what do you need? Is there any way I can help you? Or you can say, it's not okay for you to be here. You need to leave now. And, you're not welcome. So you have to decide which way to go with that. Fluid Mystic says, hello, everyone. Oh, Robert says, I know unicorns exist. I saw a video on YouTube 20 years ago. I zoomed the clip and it was there, unsuspected, and on a hill in Switzerland. They are rare. Well, that sounds awesome. Astra says, oh my God, a unicorn. I'd cry. M. Martin says, I say a series of words in my mind that I meditated on in an earlier period for reaffirmation. Okay. Astra says, wow, so cool. Jen says, wow, I love unicorns so much ever since I was a child. Yes, I loved unicorns too. And I never got to meet Galahad, but Oberon Zell is one of the early pagans, person who started paganism and stuff. He lives in Washington State and has a compound there. And he actually raised a goat and got it to have a single horn. And I saw stories about it when I was living up north. So that was like in the 80s, I think, that he was around. And everybody came to meet him and was amazed that he had a unicorn. Beth says, Heather, darling, gather your magical tools, but stand your ground and face it. Yell, get out. I had to as a child. It never bothered me again. And Heather says, thanks, Robert. We'll try it. Try that. Astra says, hello, Mystic. Fluid says, hi, Astra. Teresa says, I just found out we have a speleological society in Manitoba. They've cataloged over 200 caves here. Yes, that's where you find out where the hidden caves are and, yeah, and what the rules are for caving. Fluid says, it is funny because I saw a unicorn at my Facebook wall literally a minute ago. Synchronicity, what? In our group? I'm sort of astonished. Oh my. Heather says, yellow, get out. What is that? Help me understand. I'm new, looking for results.
Yell, get out.
Oh, yell.
It got translated into yellow.
I see that. Yell, get out. Yes. Fluid says, what a cool synchronicity. Beth says, everything is fine here. Haley says, just cleanse. Beth says, honey, mine was in the ground. It's still there, but it left me alone. Robert says, 200 caves in Manitoba? Wow. Gaga says, I heard burning sage helps with negative energy.
It does.
It can, yeah. Can get negative energy out, but you want to make sure you put positive energy in its place. Always remember, there's two parts to that. Negative energy out, Don't leave it alone. Nature abhors a vacuum. And it
So
will
do
just
cats.
suck it right back in. And so do cats, yes. Robert says, you're from Manitoba, I'm from Quebec. I bet those 200 caves is the northern sector of the famous North Dakota Wind Cave. Astra says, I have Faye tapping on my window. I started doing Morse code taps back at them. I call her Mrs. Taps. You had that the last time we had this, I
Yep.
think. They were tapping on your window. Maybe they like our show. Haley says, I read Doris. It was my fave. Yes, isn't it wonderful? Haley said, what a beautiful answer. Yes, experience and my own magic. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Beth says, Astra, I love fairies. On our property, they have my heart. Josco says, if someone has accepted in a pact with spirits the agreement that after his death he will go for some time to their other worlds, is there a way out of this?
Short answer, no.
Or does it depend on the spirits? What else can a person
Long answer, no.
do?
If it's an actual pact and you consciously accepted it, there you're stuck.
Yeah. And how to compensate an energetic debt one owes to spirits or gods. Okay, so if you've made the agreement already, and I think there actually might be a way to get out of it potentially. You could negotiate with the spirit and see if there's something you can do that they would consider fair payment for services rendered. But it's up to them, I would think.
If they've actually done anything, yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And it could just mean that you think you did it and you didn't. So Robert says, Siofra, what do you know about the coming silver spiders? Some jump into our dimension using some weird wormhole. I met a woman in USA that's just like me and witnessed this. Never heard of them. No idea. Sounds interesting, but no. Sorry. Astra says, oh my God, two, Beth. They're cute. One of them looked at me a few days ago and the smirk was hilarious. Gaga says, how can you control where you go and travel when you die? By doing your work now, in this life, so that the afterlife you create is the one you want to be in. That's the shadow work, once again. That's how you get to a place that's going to be good for you. But even if you don't succeed, the afterlife will take care of you. You know, you do what you can. Violet says, I think it seems more clear now. Odd, no more cutting out here. Maybe repositioning did it.
I did reposition the microphone a little bit. We have a noise filter that could have been kicking in. When I tried it, I was listening on the headphones and I didn't hear anything either. But if that helps, that's better. We may have to turn the noise filter down on the other computer for the microphone.
Or it could be the solar flare that is now the geomagnetic storm that is happening because you're farther north from us. And that could actually cause this kind of interference. It's a possibility if we're not hearing it here. So,
I repositioned it before I got the headphones, so.
yeah.
But anyway, as long as it's good.
Yay. May May says, Siofra, do you have any suggestions to spiritually protect our homes from storms? Currently in Florida, and we are getting a new storm this week. I am so sorry. There are some things you cannot magically stop, and this looks like one of them. So if you are on the path of the storm, please go somewhere else. And your life is worth more than any property you might have. You can try and put a magical protection around your property, but get out of it anyway.
Yeah, I figure those things always help some, but it takes a very, yeah, it takes a lot to be able to do that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that somebody like Barden could probably do it, but you'd have to be at that level, really,
Yeah, and
especially with a big storm like that.
when I was volunteering at the prison, one of the big hurricanes was heading straight to Florida, and one of the inmates, his mother lived there. And he asked if we could do some protection around her property. And so we did as a group and, visualized a circle of protection around her house. And in this case, it worked. The houses around her were destroyed and hers was not. But I don't recommend staying to find out. Seriously, follow the science is there, and find a good safe place to be, because what happened in North Carolina was so unexpected from the last one. They had no clue what was coming, and if you know it's coming and you can get out, it's a good idea. Don't play around with these forces, because it's like bigger than all of us put together.
Yeah, if you want to try to do something, I would base it on drawing a circle and try and draw a circle around your property and try to visualize as strong as you can that the storms won't touch it and things like that. Or you could even, if you really want to try to do some storm protection, I'd even charge up some stones, take 4 stones and put them on the corners of your property and that kind of thing, and
Heavy
try and
stones.
charge each, yeah, try and
That
charge
won't
each
blow.
one with the idea of protection to protect things as much as possible. And yeah, I always try things like that on the basis that, well, it's not going to hurt. I may not accomplish much, but maybe I'll manage to push away aside the one thing that may be the worst or something.
Yeah.
I always think it's worth an effort, but I don't expect to succeed with, especially with like a big storm like that. But
Yeah, it's got too much energy.
I'd try it too if I was down there anyway. I wouldn't
So
count on it. I'd get out, but
Heather
I'd
says, laugh
try
out
it.
loud, yell, get out. I will tell it that.
Yeah.
That's the spirit that's in your closet. Robert says, yell at those spirits this. You have two choices. One, get out, or two, get the hell out. Josco says, Morgan Daimler and Laura O'Brien are great sources for fairy and she lore, and Laura for Irish paganism. Beth says, Astor, they're also different, and some love pranks, talking about her fairies. Astor says, mines do pranks sometimes. They're usually pretty funny. They like to hide things from us. And then we suddenly find them right where they were supposed to be. Astor says, Robert says, May, you might try to use that stone petersite. They're expensive, so like $50 a piece. Use many and near the door. Haley says, thanks, Josco. Violet says, ooh, tell me more about silver spiders. Robert says, Violet, I know a lot more because I had tons of dreams about them. And Violet says, are they friendly in your dream? Fluid says, work in life for death and work in death for life. Egyptians wrote about it a lot. Grateful says, never challenge a thunder being.
Sounds like generally good advice.
Well, yeah, I agree. That's probably a good idea. They're very loud. Violet says, I will stop conversing after this so I don't disrupt the show. I have silver spiders in my car for fun. Grandmother's spider will come to my mind. And the creation of the alphabet, the first runes, cool. Robert says, unless you are Storm yourself or able to evoke one. And Robert says, yes, Violet, there's a link also to Nordic gods when it comes to silver spiders. Beth says, devastation is 20 minutes from my house. We are at a high elevation, but evacuate. Sorry, Beth. I'm so glad you're safe, though. And Violet says, thank you, Robert. Jen says, May, I feel you. I'm in the path of it, too. I hope you all make it through safe and sound. Same advice, Jen. Yeah, please stay safe. May says, thank you. We are in South Florida and should be okay, but with these storms, we never know. Its energy definitely feels different. Yeah. And we don't know for sure exactly where the storm is going to make landfall. At the moment, it's predicted to be a Category 3 storm with a possibility of 10 to 15 foot storm surge, depending on where it lands. If it lands right at Tampa Bay, it's going to be quite devastating, according to the local weather report from Florida that I was watching this morning. Or last night. I'm like, okay. Gaga says, I heard square houses hold negative energy. I guess the shape of something might have something to do with it. Eh.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I
I
think
wouldn't give
the
that
people that
much.
are in it have more to do with it than the shape.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and like feng shui and all that, but I certainly wouldn't worry about it. There were aspects of roundhouses that were considered sacred because of the aspects of the circle and its connection to divinity and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think there's anything negative about square houses myself at all.
Haley says, visualize force field, magical hard round circle around your home, like a big safe door, but all around. Teresa says, I'm wondering what mechanism is at work when I accidentally drop a breakable object. If I don't protect it as it falls, it breaks. If I do put protective energy and will it not, and will it to not break, that works. Okay, awesome. Beth says, I'm in East Tennessee. Okay, Robert says, yes, they are friendly in my dreams and their magic is way up there. That would be the silver spiders. Asher says, can you conjure wind for fun? There are some people in Tibet that conjure wind. We actually went to a library presentation from a local person who actually went there, and the monks that were there were trying to show him how to call the wind in, and he was not good at it, and they were laughing at him. But when they did it, it worked. So Robert says, yes, I can do it, Astra. Violet says, ooh, Robert, where did you find information? On Google? Robert says, stay safe and protected, and I use chants and drums to help. And Martin says, your hands and words like dry the rain actually have an effect, but do get to safety. He says, is there anything you can share, anything about ancestral magic veneration? Have you done anything in regards to ancestor magic? Thanks. No, I don't do ancestor magic, and neither does Ian.
Yeah, same answer.
So, there's other people
Yeah.
that do.
I don't have anything against it. It's just I have too many other interests pulling me all different ways anyway. So
And
yeah,
most of my ancestors that I know of were a-holes,
yeah,
so.
same here.
And then I remember so many past lives, I'm not sure which ancestors I should go with. So, yeah, it just isn't my thing, but yeah. Um, Astra says, when I did the calling the quarters, the fairies made my curtain move like wind. I was like, thank you, thanks guys for the special effects. It helps me. Confidence. All right. Amy says, thank you, Jen. Hope you stay safe as well. Robert says, I haven't, Violet. 99% comes from my own dreams and astral, and 1% the account of a person I met online. She shared some information also of her witnessing a little spider silver cord getting here. Beth says, I never play with the elements for fun. I respect it and use good intentions. Robert says, it's a parallel dimension super close to ours. I wish I could conjure money. Yeah, too bad. We've heard of some people who can do that, but we're not one of them either. Asher says, yes, respect is good. I just like to play with the wind. Violet says, thank you, Robert. Robert says, I might open a YouTube channel just to talk about what I know. So much information.
Well, it doesn't cost you anything to do it.
That's true. I like to play with money. Asher says, I could be my imagination, Beth, but it's fun. And Robert says, Beth has some fun. Asher says, yeah, I'm not interested in working with my ancestors. Violet says, in Norse mythology, the spider is associated with the Norns, the spinners of fate. The Old Norse word Norn is also refers generally to weavers and workers of magic. Yeah, and spider is definitely an important image for a lot of different kinds of magical practices, and several goddesses and so forth that are associated with the spider too. Jen says, thank you. Robert says, bingo, Violet. And Violet says, bingo, laugh out loud. All right. Well, I made it to the bottom of the page. I'm amazed. That was all kinds of fun in there. Whew. Gaga says, is there spirits out there that can help me live over 2,000 years? I don't think so. If you find one, let us know.
Well, why?
But I don't know
You
why
know,
we want to live that long.
really. I mean, here's an alternate option for you that's actually possible. If you get memories of your past lives, theoretically, and that's a whole nother subject, but we won't go into. But you know, then you have the equivalent. If you remember those past lives, not only that, but you know that when you die, if you reach that memory, you'll remember this life and the future life. So why not let your body be renewed? It's like us trying to hold on to my old vehicle, which is an old 1988 Chevy Astra. It's becoming a clunker, and I'm going to have to get rid of it real fast, and I'll be real glad to get a new vehicle. And you should feel the same way. Be glad to get a new vehicle as long as you had your memories between the lifetimes in your bodies, which is something that actually is attainable, though it's remote and very difficult to attain. Ironically, it may take you several lives to attain it, but so why would you want to? The opinion of all the I've read a lot of writings by learned and enlightened people, as many of genuine writings as I could find, and they all agree. Nobody wants to maintain their body past its normal lifetime. Much better to start with a new one.
And Teresa
Sorry,
says, I'm
my
always
take on
amazed
that.
at how well you keep up with the chat. Impressive. Beth says, I've had fun, but with age comes responsibility, love. Astor says, I wouldn't want to be that crusty. Beth says, you should, Robert.
However,
Bingo, everyone.
you can extend your lifetime quite a bit if you learn. It's more a personal effort, though.
Robert says,
Asceticism and such.
immortality is possible according to what I have detected, but it takes a special energy key we humans don't have. I suspect intervention. We were supposed to live 800 years. Heather says, is there a spirit that can help me win the lottery? I don't know. If you find one, can you pass him on to us and let us know? Robert says, yes, Beth, I will think about it. Maria says, we had a big windstorm recently that damaged and knocked over a lot of trees in my area. Is there a way to help the trees that were felled? I'd like to help, but I don't know how. Well, you can go to the site of some of the trees that are near you and just let them know that you're sorry that they're gone, and maybe put something in the ground, a seed of some kind or a crystal or whatever. But generally speaking, the trees know when a storm is coming, what's going to happen to them. The spirit of the tree is there to help the tree. I mean, it's not fun for the tree for sure, but it's a natural thing that happens. And yeah, so you can do that if it makes you feel better. And I'm sure the trees would appreciate it. That's the only thing I can think of. Jen says, thank you, Siofra, and again for all you do. I greatly appreciate the sacrifice of your time and energy to teach us and to answer our questions to help us. Bless you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Robert says, other mystics, animals, or insects you saw, Siofra? Um,
Dragon.
well, yeah, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
A thing that sort of looked like a foo lion, I think, that was a non human spirit that had been around since the beginning of time, plus the two headed dragon guy that also had been around since the beginning of time. So it was like a couple of those, but I can't find a myth associated with that one. There is a myth, but I can't find the name of the being. Someone told me the name once. I wrote it down, and I haven't found the book that I wrote it down in. It's just really annoying. Violet says, I so agree from the very best. You're welcome. Astra says, I'm wondering if all the bugs that I've killed can come back and haunt me. I don't think they have the
Yeah.
wherewithal to do that.
Some Buddhist stuff talks about reincarnating into an animal form and such, but I'm not at all sure that I give any credence to that. I mean, I'm not an expert on that particular subject, but my personal feeling is, yeah, those kinds of things don't happen, and karma doesn't work that way, so to speak. One of the things Crowley said was that if he kills 10,000 fleas at his, apparently he had a big infestation of fleas at the foot of a glacier one time when he was mountain climbing. He says, it doesn't mean I'm going to be killed 10,000 times by a single fleas, just because he.
Well, boundaries, right? If it's trying to suck my blood, it's dead. If it's trying to poison me, it's dead. If
Yep,
it's trying to eat my food, it's dead.
I
These are the
agree.
rules. And it knows the rules. And so
No,
apparently it wanted to die. So, what can I say?
no, I really don't think so. Now I'm going to posit something which I don't know how people feel about, but there's like we call it a universal consciousness of sort associated with like insects, like bees, for example. There's like a bee consciousness and like a whatever kind of insect consciousness. It's like an overseer, an oversoul for that species or what have you. And if you got that irritated with you, you could have some bad results and things. But in general, I don't think, killing insects in a normal fashion, unless you had a vendetta against them, you might make that oversoul mad or whatever it is. And this is just
And you might be
theorizing on,
born with a fear of them.
yeah, theorizing on my part. But yeah, you know,
Arachnophobia.
frankly, we just need to deal with those things. Little things are practical. Be practical. I mean, you can always put insect outside, and you don't need to kill them. But depends. I won't put up with spiders. I tried being nice to them for a while, and they took advantage of it. And I was waking up with them crawling over me when I was asleep and things like that. So yeah, No, I don't think there's, as long as you don't have a vendetta against them or something, I don't think there's any issues with that.
So Teresa says, once there was a tree blown down in a windstorm here. As I was driving by, it asked me for help. I said I couldn't. It asked me if I could put it back up right. It was a huge tree. We were sad. Yep, some things can't be saved. Beth says, great live as always. Protection, love for everyone. Evacuate and stay safe. And please take your pets. Yes. Haley says, this is my first time making it to a live. Who is this Ethan? It's actually Ian, Ian, and he's my husband. Yeah, and my partner for 33 years now. He's the voice you hear coming out of the other side of me. Gaga says, I heard absorbing light helps you take your memories with you to the next life. Maybe. Robert says, if it enters my home, it dies. The Astro, laugh out loud, Siofra. Pilot says, use the glass, but not that often. Haley says, what kind of beings have you seen? Ones that would amaze us. To me, that dragon you mentioned amazes me. So anything really. Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen fairies and angels, and I met a tree troll. Is that a troll? Oak tree orchid? No, tree troll. Um, Forest troll. That's what it was called. Not tree. It was by a tree in the forest. It was huge, and yeah, I've met a number of different types of beings in my travels. So, yes, and I try not to judge them for their appearance, which helps. We have mutual respect for one another, and I respect them like I would a wild animal. If I ran across a bear, for example, I would not be running up and trying to give it a hug. I would be giving it respect. Robert says, thanks, Beth, you're great. ML says, hi, all. Hi, ML. Beth says, Haley, hi. Astor says, those bugs wanted to go to Valhalla. Yep, they
Yep.
did. Grateful Owl says, the tree I made my first and only connection with was taken down along with the others nearby. This is upsetting news. I hope they replanted them somewhere. Well, at least you have your wand, which kept the spirit alive. Beth says, Robert, love. Haley says, hi, Beth. Teresa says, I have a spider rule, not in my bed, but anywhere else is okay. No killing of spiders, even.
I assure you, I don't go looking for them. Only if they encroach upon me do they get smooshed.
Yep. And if I see one climbing on me, I jump, scream, and smack. It's like I can't help it. They should know better. And Violet says, my baby brother used to fry ants with a magnifying glass. Ow, that's not good. But that is a fun, boyish memory. He was very good at it. Doesn't sound fun to me. We caught
No.
snakes together, and we were always good to them. Josco says, what's your opinion about are there gods who have not yet manifested in our world but are equally real, and what to do if a person is in contact with such forces? And also, what about ancient gods but forgotten in time? Yep, I don't know. I mean, there are certainly forces and things like some of the creatures, beings that I've met that were well before humans. Fairies came before humans. There's just about everything in the spirit world came before humans. So we're kind of like the new kid on the block. Um, if you meet one, be respectful. Find out what it is. Decide if you want to work with it or not. If you don't like it, don't work with it. So I don't know what else to say on that. Robert says, no more killing. Violet says, Astra, Valhalla. Haley says, as humans, we all do have fear of these bugs. Over evolution, there's a reason we're terrified of them. It's kept us alive. The ick we get by bugs and stuff has helped our ancestors. Yes. Robert says, yeah, like Odin, Loki, Freya.
Well, and you have to consider too, just where humans fit into this and what our purpose is. For example, when I was thinking about the lives of all beings, including um, insects and things, I couldn't remove the idea that plants are beings also. We walk on grass all the time. Are we hurting the grass? What happens to that? We squish earthworms. We kill bacteria all the time when we brush our teeth. Is that bad? Should we stop brushing our teeth? You have to decide. The principle is great. The principle is awesome. But you have to decide where and when you need to not stick in principle and stick to reality. Otherwise, you make your own life suck.
Yeah, my skin is killing things constantly because of
Yeah.
its acidic content. Any bacteria that lands on my skin, zap, is like, I'm not going to worry about it. Anything I breathe into
So
my
yeah.
lungs,
So
zap. It's like,
you're supposed to be conscious and aware of those things, but not, and not like go on a vendetta to try to kill them, or not burn them with magnifying glasses. You know, I mean,
yeah.
I'll kill insects if there's reasons or what have you. But yeah, so
Okay, so Joshko says, ha, now you're telling me about beings that were from the beginning of time? Well, yeah, the universe is conscious. Haley says it's a response. Oh, I did that one. And Beth says I have to pee. Astor says I try to get my cat to get the bugs. He just plays with them. You don't want your cat to eat the bugs. That's how they get worms. Um, Grateful Owl says Africa has legends of dog-sized spiders that can take full-grown adult.
we don't
Yeah,
want to see
there's.
one of those.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to. Violet says, "Did you meet Zeus, Shifra? The lightning bolt is his main tool, so I imagine you did." Well, yeah, but it seemed more like it was Thor rather than Zeus. So yeah, I mean, I identified with Thor more than I did Zeus. Asher says, I saw a Fae that looked like a giant bug. He looked like a Jiminy Cricket and had a monocle.
Well, that sounds cute.
All right, we have to
I'd
go.
like to meet that one.
We're actually like going over here. So sorry, guys. The rest of the questions will go unanswered. And Gaga says, some people believe that you have a higher self or a higher dimension. Do you believe that too? I know I have a higher self and I have a higher self too. We'll get into that another week.
Blessed be everybody.
All right. Haley says, exactly, Ian. Reality. Be realistic, people. Okay. So great time as usual. So, we'll see you all next week and have yourselves a wonderful time here. So, way to go.
Yep.
Once again, I am entertained. Everybody stay safe and get to high ground or get to safe ground, whatever that might mean. I don't want to hear about anybody having problems when we see you again, because I want to see you again next week, all you who are in the danger zone. So you better take care of yourself. That's an order from me. So there. Blessed be everybody. Bye.
Blessed be and goodbye.